name is Dawn Cook, and I'm terribly sorry that I can't be there with you today. However, I thought I'd take a few moments to introduce myself. I believe there should be a resume going around. Hopefully you guys get a copy of that. So I happen to be a huge lover of science. That's really my main focus on a lot of things. I realize that in the elementary school level, there's many subjects, and I think they're all very, very important. But I love that science happens to touch every single aspect of our life more than we actually realize. And that's something that I tend to focus on. So even in literacy projects or social studies projects, I tend to always relate things right back to science. I just wanted to take a minute to say that Mrs. McClarty, I would love to have been there to see you again, and it would be lovely to see you. And then Mrs. Williams, I just want to let you know that I've still got my pen, and I brought it with me, or I would have brought it with me, but I have it here. So I remember a lot of things from all my classes from all these years. Some of the greatest things that I've been able to experience at the University of Arkansas included all of my biology minor classes. I feel that really helped me get a really good solid content knowledge so that I'm able to better serve the students that I see in the classroom. Internship has been incredible for me. I really appreciate the diversity of students that I've been able to teach from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade now. Every grade level has its ups and downs, but I will say that kindergarten, I was able to hone my classroom management skills. That was a really great learning experience for me. Coming in at the beginning of this particular school year was interesting because I was able to see how a new classroom would be made. Because of all the overflow students, I was able to see how students coming in from a diverse background were able to fall into the classroom routine at different levels. You could really see the difference between some of the different preschools in the area. Actually, that was really interesting for me. I thought that maybe I would touch upon a few common questions that I was maybe anticipating that you would possibly ask, and then just kind of spitball an answer so that you could see where I stand on a few things. Obviously, Fayetteville and Springdale and really anything in the Northwest Arkansas area, there's a very diverse population. And it's not just culturally diverse, but it also happens to be socioeconomically diverse. And there's different ways that you handle that. I feel like classroom management varies from grade level to grade level, and it varies from classroom to classroom. Things that work for one student happen to not necessarily work for another student. So sometimes you have to be really flexible with the way you handle classroom management. Students could be a little bit antsy one day for whatever reason, changes, or maybe there was a sub that day, and younger students happen to really treasure routine quite a bit more. Older students tend to be a little bit more go with the flow. So just depending on that, I don't know that I have one specific set idea for classroom management, besides the fact that I really feel like modeling wonderful behavior, practicing routines, especially at the younger grades, we have to practice that. That's not an automatic thing for them. That's just not the way we're trained. Same as muscle memory. I feel like students, once they begin to get into this routine, that starts to become second nature. But if they've never been taught that, they don't know that second nature. I will always adhere to school guidelines because I know different schools use different methods. There's the clip down method, there's the classroom dojo, different things like that. And once you get up into, say, McNair, where I am placed at my current placement, it's much different. We have run cards, there's different behavior strikes, academic strikes. Some teachers are a little bit more lenient on things than others, and you just really have to strike that balance with your student. I really feel like getting to know students on a personal level is incredibly important. Bringing myself in on a personal level, for instance, I have done some different biological research in Thailand, and I've been to Belize, so I'm able to bring these really neat, I happen to like snake research, so that is a really interesting connection with students because they're either really excited about that because they're fascinated, or they're completely turned off and they're They're inquisitive because they want to know why I would necessarily like to touch a snake, or have I ever seen a venomous snake? Things like that. Those are openers, great conversation openers that relate to everybody. And then they start asking questions. And for me, being as sciencey as I am, I really appreciate a good classroom discourse. I think that really, really helps with the way students converse with each other, the way they converse with an adult, the way they're able to present and argue their side of a case if they agree or disagree with something. I think that it's incredibly important for them to learn kind of the rules of how you engage a conversation. Just blurting out is not respectful to your classmates, and they soon start to learn that. So I think that really goes back to classroom management. If you have good constant practice, good modeling on your behavior and the way in which I interact with students, then they're able to interact with each other in a more engaging way, and that's really important for them. Differentiation is really important. I think there's some really fantastic ways that we can include, because really when you think about it, you're differentiating probably for a certain student that might possibly have a special need. However, that doesn't mean that that doesn't benefit everyone. So if you just implement things as a way of teaching everyone, then everyone in the class benefits, and it doesn't necessarily strategically call out the student that may need additional help. If it's a lighting situation, many students, whether it's a situation that's an intolerance for them, many students will actually benefit from, say, using lamps instead of fluorescent lights, or using natural light instead of fluorescent lights. That's something that can benefit everybody, even though you know specifically that you're targeting the one student or multiple students. Skeleton notes, that's something that I've actually used. I really, really appreciate skeleton notes. I think that it's a great way to engage all students. And it's not just the students that might possibly need the differentiation, but it happens to incorporate different types of students' needs. From, say, ADHD, because you're engaging them, where they have to listen just enough so they can get those words, and they're engaged enough for that, yet they're able to not have to highly concentrate, which is not something that would be their strong suit. But then it also helps the students that have difficulty writing at a fast pace. They may need something where it's a little bit more chunked or structured for them. So this happens to help everyone. All the information is there, so you know that every student is getting the information. It's just the one word that they might be putting in. So you know they all have a wonderful way to study because you've put some of that information in there. They're engaged into that talk or that lecture or however we're handling class that day, and you know that it's going to get in their science notebook the way it's supposed to. So I think that's a really great way to differentiate, besides just adjusting lighting and really feeling out what the students' needs are. Obviously, it's a much more in-depth process depending on the students' needs and what happens. I've been thankful that I've had the opportunity to sit in a few of the meetings where these things are decided. And, I think chunking is a wonderful way to do that. That's a great way to give little snippets of information. I mean, whoever remembers a whole paragraph long of instructions? I don't even remember that. So of course it makes sense to chunk that out so that students have it a little bit by a little bit. So I think that's a really great way to differentiate. One of the things that I was kind of going through a few things, and one of the things that I wanted to convey is difficult situations. How would I handle a difficult situation? Well, currently I'm going through some crazy times, but I think that ultimately through my life, I've had the advantage of, I have two children. One is 16, almost 17, and one is 14, almost 15. And they are complete and total opposites. I almost have to be two different types of parents. I use two different parenting styles with them. What works for one does not work for the other one. And I often tell them they're both going to the same destination. They're just using different vehicles to get there. I don't know if, one may be on a highway and one may be, my son would definitely be using the downhill bike path because that's his love is outdoors. But I've noticed that sometimes we've had to overcome a few things, and you just dig deep because I feel like there's an answer for everything. There's an answer out there, and maybe it's not something that I see right away. But for instance, I happen to be in an area that my laundry is behind me, and we recently had a dryer break, and to me, it just seemed like a logical thing that I would just research how to fix that, and I did. So, I mean, sometimes you just have to dig deep and you have to get through all the things that life throws at you. But there's always ultimately a way in which to get through something. So it may seem tough at the time, but I tend to be a relatively positive person because I know that this too shall pass. Nothing's going to last forever. And if it does happen to last forever, then I always feel like I'll figure out a way to deal with all of the stuff that happens. So that's a little bit about me. I'm not sure if I touched on everything that I would do in a classroom, but I wanted you to get a feel or a sense that, whatever life throws at me or my family personally, I want to make sure that I give my all to everything that I've committed to. And once again, I'm sorry that I can't be there in person with you, but I hope that you get a feel for how I would run possibly a science classroom. I'm not sure, but thank you for your time.